everybody. It's Monday, October 11th, and that means it's time for another episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, Nonprofit Conversations. I'm one of your hosts, Cecilia Sepp. I'm the principal and founder of Road Tulips Nonprofit Consulting. My co-host and friend, Agnes Amos Coleman, can't be here today because she is on assignment. So good luck with that assignment, Agnes. And on Agnes's behalf, I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to our global audience, wherever you may be. Thanks for joining us for this episode. We're here today with Fern Carbonell, who is a wellness coach, and she is going to talk with us about mindfulness. But Fern, why don't you say a few words about yourself and your coaching practice before we dig into the topic?
Oh, thank you so much, Cecilia. I'm Fern Carbonell, as Cecilia said, and I am a wellness coach supporting women in midlife so that they, really learn how to care for themselves. And through my work as a coach, I help women prioritize their self-care and connect with themselves and just help them realize that their well-being is important and that they should put that first.
And I think that is something that should be on everyone's mind, Fern. And I think even men out there listening to this or watching this, try to support the women in your lives because they are doing a lot for you. And that's what Fern's here to help us remember and think about. So Fern, you wanted to talk about mindfulness today in this episode of our regular series with you. So could you explain for the audience what mindfulness is?
Yes, absolutely. So mindfulness is just being present in the moment, just being aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not to be overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. And it's just so easy to just react to how we're feeling. So, when you're having a really strong emotion or reaction to something that someone has said, just pause. And just let that feeling kind of flow by, because it will leave you. But it helps to just take that moment instead of reacting so strongly to it.
That's great. That's a great piece of advice to think about. So you mean maybe you're at work and a coworker says something that you're sensitive to. So you're recommending don't say anything, just wait.
Well, don't react immediately because you might regret what comes out of your mouth. So
well, we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it begins in your mind, and then you're thinking these really negative thoughts, and then you might speak it or you might act on it. So just take a pause and then just ask, maybe clarify, what do they instead of reacting to it. Always check in, and being mindful and being present is also about clear communication, right? So you want to you don't want to make assumptions. You just want to get clarification, or you just explain your side with no judgment on the other person. So yeah, clear communication is so important.
Boy, and I think the world would definitely be a better place if we all kept that in mind. I think we've all been in a relationship where we've responded, well, what is that supposed to mean? And I don't think that's what you're going for, though.
No, and also, we get emails and we're on Zoom a lot, so we read a lot of facial expressions, and we don't get to see a lot of the body language. So just pausing. I was on a Zoom recently where somebody misinterpreted somebody's eye roll when the person wasn't really rolling her eyes. Her eyes just happened to just be moving weird across her eyes, right? And that someone took offense to that. So just checking in with the other person.
Well, and that, of course, is always good advice. Just kind of say, well, was that directed at me, or were you commenting on something else? I think one of the things, and we all have to work at this. I know a lot of people say things to me like, oh, Cecilia, you're so self-confident, you're so self-assured. Well, but that takes work. And I get negative thoughts too. So, and when I have these kind of thoughts, I realize I'm putting, like your eye roll example, I'm putting my thing on someone else. So what are some tips you might have for people to stop doing that?
Yes. So like you said, it takes effort to be present, because when we come into a situation, we're like bringing everything with us, all our baggage, our latest experience, our argument with our partner, all of that comes forward. So be present, leave all that behind you and just be in the moment and be with that person and listen to them and make space for yourself and make space for them as well, with no judgment and not being in the past or in the future, because we get really hung up on that, don't we?
Yeah, it's usually the past that's the problem. I have found in my life.
Or even just worrying about the future a lot. I mean, of course I do that, but yes, it takes intentional practice to be mindful. You've got to shut your mind off. Well, not really shut it off, but bring it. You've got to be in control of your mind and just bring it to the present moment. And you can practice that throughout the day, with some breathing exercises or, okay, so being present just means, let's say you're out on a walk, you hear the leaves rustling or you hear the children laughing in the background, you hear the leaves rustling. Those are all being present in the moment, noticing what's going on now instead of, what's behind you.
Well, I'm really glad you used nature examples, because that's one of the things I like to do. So that personally resonates with me. And I know it might be other things for other people, but for me, it's listening to the birds singing, because we have a lot of songbirds where I live and they all sound different. And so I like to do that. I like to kind of notice things. And I've lived in the neighborhood I live in now for over 5 years, and I'm still noticing new things when I take walks. So I'm with you on that. It's really just paying attention to where you are at that moment. And it's kind of a scary thing to think about sometimes, but the only thing that lasts is the ever passing present moment. You can't be in the past and you can't be in the future. You're only right where you are at this time. And so that's where you are as these moments pass.
I love how you phrase that. Yeah. And that's why they say the present is such a magical moment, because you have this moment to decide how you're going to react to something. Are you going to be supportive, or are you going to be angry? So, this is the moment to decide on how you're going to react to that email or to that phone call. I mean, how many times have you read an email and you just immediately, rush to start typing your reaction to it because it's just really brought up a lot of anger or frustration, so
right.
Step back, step away from the email.
I was going to say, are you using that email to work out all the problems that you're having today? It's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I call those eek mails. Like, eek, I can't believe I actually hit send on that.
Oh, no. Yeah, I used to have a coworker who would write her reaction and then she would step away from it. She'd make sure, she took it out. She took out the the person's email, so she wouldn't accidentally send it. But sometimes, it's a nice release to let that go, and then you can write your actual message to them. Your more mindful reaction.
Well, and I think sometimes the more mindful reaction, and I don't know if you agree with this, I'd like to hear your opinion. I think the more mindful reaction on things like text or emails, because we do a lot of texting now in this day and age, as we like to say, pick up the phone and call someone and say, I think so. I mean, what do you think about that as a technique?
Oh my gosh. You know what? That is such a good point, because we should just talk it through, because sometimes it's a lot faster and it's not misinterpreted either, because you guys can clear it up really fast in just a few minutes rather than going back and forth with text for a half hour.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And that's what you have to be careful about, because, I'll be honest, I still make these mistakes sometimes, like
we
especially,
all do.
Especially with family. I think family is a flare point for
lots of triggers.
Exactly. It's like, what do you mean by that? But no, but it is nice. I do have to say, a nice thing is I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and my brothers will call and check in on me once in a while. So that's nice. They'll be like, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I am. Thanks for asking. So that's a nice thing to do too. All of these things, Fern, that you're suggesting about mindfulness, they're not all about dealing with negative things, right? It's about positive.
No. Right? Oh yeah, absolutely. And you can practice it throughout your day. Just with breathing exercises. So you can just spend a couple of minutes just kind of inhaling and exhaling. And at the same time, you're also calming your body. So that's a good way to be present, just paying attention to your breath, because that'll keep you in the present. And especially if you're worrying a lot, and you're experiencing a lot of stress, the breath is always a good place to return to. And then you can also do, a meditation for a few minutes. Just silent your mind for 2 to 3 minutes a day. And that will, those practices compound so that you are less reactive throughout your day with your relationships and your communications with other people.
Yes, that whole thing about take a breath. I think let's stop and take a breath here before we move forward is always good advice. So I'd like to ask you your opinion of this kind of a technique. So one of the things I do, and it's probably because I tend to be a little more analytical and research oriented, I ask myself a series of questions before I react to things, like especially if it's a trigger thing, like something I'm sensitive to. Is that a technique that you use? And if so, what kind of questions might you suggest?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the question that I always ask myself is, will my reaction be hurtful or helpful? So, so you always want it to be helpful, right? You don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. So that's a good place. That's a good question to ask yourself. So I'm curious what questions you ask yourself, Cecilia.
Well, what I ask myself is, why am I reacting so sensitively to this message? What is it? What button is it actually pressing? Am I reacting to this because it's triggering some childhood thing, which, again, we all have those triggers. We try to get past them. So I ask myself, what is it triggering? Why am I acting this way? Is it the person who's saying it or what they're saying? Or am I just really upset about something else? And this is one more thing in my day. So those are some of the questions I ask myself. I kind of walk myself through it. Like I met with a friend. One of the pieces of advice I try to follow for myself is I try to talk to myself like I would a friend, right? Because you're always nicer to your friends than you are to yourself, right? So it's like, you should be your best friend, but you're not. So it's, what I try to do is just take a step back. I do the breathing exercises like you've recommended. I'll just take a breath, or I walk away from the computer if it's an email. And I just say, well, what is going on here? Why am I reacting to this in this way? And then I just kind of say, well, okay, I'm upset about something else, or, or I just, you were saying we don't want to be hurtful to people, but my smart aleck response would be, well, I think it depends on the person, because, there's just some people you don't like very much, right? And it's like, is it the person who's saying it? Do you just strongly disagree with that person? Or sometimes I have to remind myself people don't know the things I know. And so that's why they seem like they're not getting it, so things like that. So, so I have these series of questions I just say to myself about it. It's like, is this person just not getting it? Or do you need to have a phone call with this person? So I have like a whole question tree that I go through, which is
very
actually
nice.
very quickly. When I'm getting upset about things, because like everybody, we all have the voices in our head, right? And the negative tape that we play for ourselves. So you think, oh, is this person not respecting me, or is this person think I'm stupid, or something like that? That's that lack of confidence in a situation, I think. And we all have those moments. We all have those moments where we're not feeling sure of ourselves. And I find that's when I usually react negatively to something. But I'm like you, I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt and say, are you having a bad day? Because you don't usually act like this.
Because I think, right, yes. And I think that being kind to yourself will also result in being kind and patient to the other person too. Yeah. So I like your question tree, and I like how you think. Yeah, I mean, I like how you think it through too, because you're making space for yourself and you're making space for the other person too, to get their their take on what's happening.
Yes. And I've
with that
stopped
communication.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I've stopped sending email too. Like I don't do that.
Good for you.
I just don't do it anymore. If I do that practice you suggested of write the email in the moment, but don't send it to anybody, delete it. I do that once in a while too. Like
it's so helpful. Yeah. And it helps you kind of organize your thoughts too.
Yeah. It's like, although, like I said, I have my moments. Like last year, it was June 2020. It was like one of my first outings after the lockdown rules had eased. And I was, actually went to the dermatologist. And right before I made the last turn to get home, somebody rear-ended me really hard. And it was a stop sign. And I was waiting to make my turn, and so that said to me, the person was not paying any attention whatsoever to what was going on around them. So I got really angry. I got out of the car and I yelled at them. Because I was like, what are you, I was like, because the first thing out of my mouth was, what is wrong with you that you ran into my car? And the poor guy was just shocked, because he hadn't been paying attention. So is that the nice way to deal with it? I'm going to say no. But it's not. But we all just have these emotional reactions. It was very shocking to me too, to be rear-ended so close to where I live, and it's just but it all worked out well. Nobody got hurt except the cars, and he took full responsibility, and his insurance paid for everything. So
so it it turned out well.
Yeah, it did. It did. I calmed down, right? Although I did out him to his girlfriend. He was talking. It was his girlfriend's car, but he was talking to his girlfriend, and I think that's what distracted him. And it was her car, and she was on speaker. And I'm like, wait till you see what he did to your car. So no! Again, not a nice thing to do, but so I calmed down after that. But no, Fern, I have to say, it was not in the moment being helpful in that scenario.
Yeah, and we're all going to have moments like that. So just be kind to yourself is all, and do better next time. That's all. Yeah, just let it go. Right, let it go. Yeah,
it's hard though, right?
It is, but it takes effort. Everything. All that mindfulness, being present, it all takes effort and gentleness on yourself too.
Yeah, great. Well, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for letting me share some of my ideas. So Fern, I know that you have a new opportunity to interact with you coming up. Can you tell the audience about that?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So my friend and I, Eileen Franco, who is also a wellness coach and specializes in hormones, we are putting together a community called Ask the Wellness Coach. So it's 30 minutes twice a week for women to participate and learn and just come together as a community. And we'll have special topics that we'll focus on, and then some question and answer sessions, and it'll be super interactive too.
Oh,
so you can find me on Instagram at Love Nurture Bloom, and also you can send me an email at fern@lovenurturebloom.com if you'd like more information, or you can go to my website at lovenurturebloom.com.
That's great. Well, I am going to try to fit that into my schedule as often as I can, even if I'm just listening to other people's questions, because this is something we make time for, is taking care of ourselves. So it's kind of funny. I know we're running a little over on this episode, but when I talk to people about the fact that I actually do make time in my day for self-care, they seem surprised. And I said, well, we all talk about it. Why why do you act surprised someone actually does it? So
so be a part of your day.
Do you have a closing thought for our audience? You've already told us how to get in touch with you. So do you have a thought you'd like us to take away today?
So mindfulness, like, we talked about, takes intention. So just practice it throughout the day and just see how your reaction to things change, after you've been practicing for a while.
Oh, that's a great tip. Well, thank you again, Fern Carbonell, wellness coach, specializing in midlife care for women. And again, you can learn more about Fern at lovenurturebloom.com. And we look forward to having you back for your next episode in our series.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. I really enjoyed these sessions.
Thanks. We do too. Thanks, Fern. And we'll see. Oh, so actually, I need to remember to do our regular closing. We have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next time with another episode. If you want to learn more about Rogue Tulips, you can check us out at roguetulips.com. And don't miss an episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, Nonprofit Conversations. You can subscribe to our playlist on YouTube. You can also subscribe to the audio version on your favorite podcast service. So look for us on anchor.fm, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and several others. So thanks again for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time.